Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to use Plasti Dip to black out the logo or emblem on your vehicle. Today I'll be using a 2016 Mazda CX-5 and I'm going to be heading outside to do that shortly. I'll show you the video outside as well, but I want to run through a couple quick things so that hopefully this will be the only video you'll actually have to really review before doing this yourself. Couple recommendations. First and foremost is making sure that you're protecting your vehicle and being safe with the Plasti Dip. The fumes from this are highly toxic. You'll see tons of warning logos or warning signs on the back. So I would just highly recommend using proper protective breathing equipment, doing this in an outdoor area or a very well ventilated area. If it's too windy outdoors, try to find a safe garage to do it in. But again, make sure that you're not breathing in these fumes. We will also be using Goo Gone. And this is really just to fix any small mistakes that we make. This is the automotive sticker remover. I would highly recommend testing this on a portion of the vehicle that is not as visible. This is in the instructions. It's just best practice to make sure that if you're going to use this on the vehicle, that it isn't going to actually damage the paint. This is designed for automotive use, but just to be safe. Now this one, if I'm not mistaken, is not necessarily as toxic. It's just not something that you should swallow. I don't anticipate anyone drinking this, but you never know. So if you're planning on it, don't. Next up, we'll be using some scotch tape. I would recommend really any tape except electrical tape or duct tape, as those are going to leave some residue behind. And then scissors and some kind of paper would help. And let me give you a quick run through of what purpose all of this serves, as well as the trash bag you'll probably need just to be safe. So we're going to be using the trash bag. We're going to tear it and essentially put it over top of the entire area that could potentially come in contact with the Plasti Dip. This stuff comes off of a car pretty easily, and it's honestly very, very forgiving. But if this is the first time you've done this, instead of spending time looking up every single YouTube video, they're pretty much all the same. You're going to cover every area that you don't want to spray, clean the emblem or logo or whatever it is that you're going to be spraying down, dry it off, preferably with a microfiber cloth, making sure that there's no dust or particles or anything that gets on it or could get on it as the Plasti Dip is drying. We'll be going through at least 4 to 6 coats with these Plasti Dip, and just to let you know, you're probably looking at least 10 to 15 minutes in between coats to make sure that you're allowing the first coat and second coat, etc., time to dry. Goo Gone is really only needed if you're trying to remove the Plasti Dip. For example, if you wanted to, in theory, you could Plasti Dip any part of the vehicle and not actually protect any of it and just rub the Plasti Dip off. But the dangerous part is when you're trying to remove it with Goo Gone and then you, for example, get some on the logo or emblem that you're trying to keep Plasti Dipped, then you run the risk of potentially removing some accidentally. So the tape is essentially to secure the trash bag in place. What I do is I cover the entire area. I'll cut out a square portion around the logo, emblem, or whatever it is that I'm going to be spraying. And then I will use the tape to really get in between any crevices. So for example, I have a second video, which I'll link in the description, where I'll be doing the Civic logo on a 2011 Honda Civic. I use the tape to get in between each of the letters, so when you peel it off, it's much easier. A lot of people that I've seen use toothpicks or something small and kind of wooden so it doesn't damage the paint, and you can use that to actually scrape the Plasti Dip off of crevices as well. So it's really just whatever you prefer. I would highly recommend giving it at least a day to dry before removing anything. So for example, the vehicle that I'm going to be giving you the run through of today, it's been outside drying overnight. So it's probably been at least 12 to 16 hours since I put the 5th to 6th coat of Plasti Dip on the logo. The reason I recommend some scissors and paper is if you are pulling the if you're pulling the trash bag off and you were to peel off some of the Plasti Dip on the logos or emblems yourself on accident, you can actually use this instead of starting all over again. For example, the Mazda logo has a little V in it that looks, best way I can word it, it meets in just like this, like the scissors do here. You could cut this out on a piece of paper and hold that in front of the Mazda logo so that you can respray while only getting that specific area. I've done that and it works relatively well, but if you're someone like me who's a perfectionist, I would highly recommend just starting over. It doesn't take terribly long, and the bulk of the process is spent waiting for the Plasti Dip itself to dry. So one last run through on the process, very, very simple. Cover the vehicle, or at least any area that could touch the vehicle, with this trash bag. And then you're going to cut out a section and tape down everything that is not the logo itself that you're spraying. And again, the more efficiently you do this, the more areas you cover, that's less cleanup work you're going to have to do after. Goo Gone will help you to get any stray Plasti Dip off. And then the Plasti Dip itself, run under warm water or sit in some warm water for 60 seconds to 2 minutes. And then make sure you shake it to get it loosened up, and then spray off in the distance somewhere on something, just to make sure that it's spraying out evenly, especially once it starts drying on the nozzle. Make sure you always test it first so it doesn't spray out in like a glob and then mess up any of the hard work that you're putting in. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and head outside, go ahead and let you know what this process looks like in real time. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today I want to give you a quick run through of how to Plasti Dip or black out the logos or emblems on your car. So before we get started, a couple things you will likely need are your flavor or color of choice of Plasti Dip, and then Goo Gone. Although this is not technically necessary, it's really going to help you to remove any of the excess spray from around the logos, depending on how well you actually go through the process. The end result ideally would look something like this once it's officially blacked out. So Plasti Dip is essentially like a rubberized spray that is almost weatherproof, similar to spray paint, except it will adhere to pretty much any surface, and you can use the Goo Gone to get it off of your actual car paint if there is, again, some excess spray. So what I typically do is I'll take a trash bag and tear it, and then I'll use scotch tape all the way around the edges just to make sure that it doesn't billow out if you're doing it outside in the elements, and then the wind could kind of blow through. And then I'll tear it right around the logo. And then what I do is I tape right up to the corner or the edge of the logo all the way around. Essentially, this means that I'm not going to have to use the Goo Gone around the edge of the logo, especially if you're a little bit worried about the possibility of potentially getting some on the Plasti Dip on the corner and then that potentially rubbing off. Now, you have two choices here. If you would like, you can actually tape the inside of the logo as well. And then with that, you'll be able to peel that off so that just the emblem is blacked out. But I can warn that is a little bit more difficult on some logos to get the tape in. And once the Plasti Dip starts to stretch, you run the risk of peeling it off near the inside of the emblem itself. One thing to note though, you can cut out a piece of paper if you wanted. Let's just say we peeled this entire interior piece off. You can cut out a piece of paper and slip it under the logo so that you don't have to worry about getting that excess spray back on the car paint itself. Now, once you have all of this, like the trash bag, taped on, typically what you would do is you would take your Plasti Dip. It's usually good practice to shake it for about 60 seconds or so. I would recommend, from what I've seen online, putting it under warm water before you even get started for 60 seconds or so, just to make sure that it comes out in an even coat. You would, at this point, get 6 to 8 inches away, and then you're going to spray an even coat once. Usually, it's not going to get completely blacked out on the first coat. This means that you're looking for kind of like a sandpapery finish, and you're going to be putting 4 to 6 coats on, even more. But usually, Plasti Dip can supposedly be rated for up to 3 years or so. So I would highly recommend putting at least 4 to 5 coats minimum. Me personally, I've had enough troubles trying to get the tape and peel this piece off, but I also realized that I like it with the black on the actual car paint itself. So I'm just Plasti Dipping this whole piece. And again, I've already gone through the process, but it's pretty simple at this point. Again, you're just taking the Plasti Dip 6 to 8 inches away. You're going to spray through. I usually will hold it down consistently, go sideways in a zigzag motion, and then go top to bottom. And then every time that you go through this, I would highly recommend hitting it from a different angle. You'll notice if you follow this method and you only spray from the front, the tops will not get as much of a coating on them, and then they'll show that silver piece or whatever color your emblem is. So let's go ahead and get started removing this. Pretty simple process for the tape itself. Where it gets a little bit tricky is when you get to the logo. As we don't want to risk peeling the Plasti Dip off. So typically what you will do is, again, the paint and the tape are connected right here. So I will just start to lift and you'll see that the Plasti Dip will start to separate. And I'm just pulling directly back. I did let this sit overnight, so you are looking at least 12 hours of time spent drying. But again, just peel back and away. If you peel straight up, you run the risk of stretching the Plasti Dip from and pulling it from the logo itself. So I apologize that there was no way to get a stand to work with this. And again, since I use tape, it gives you the option to peel just like this. Some people feel comfortable enough not using the tape or any of these methods and literally just spraying it directly on the car. Feel free to do whatever makes you comfortable. I just feel like this method has a little bit less cleanup involved. All right. So get this here just to cover up the tag so we don't have to do any video edits later. So this is what the final product is going to look like. Overall, it's going to have some edge work that needs to be taken care of, but typically something simple like a toothpick will take care of that. And then again, you end up with a similar coat and finish to the CX5 logo that I have here, but pretty basic process overall. Finish is usually pretty solid. If I'm doing it outside, so I don't think it's as smooth as could be. But again, very, very simple process. If you got to a point where you were peeling up and it peeled through to the logo itself, then that's when it would be easiest just to take some Goo Gone, rub it over, and then you literally just rub straight onto the logo, take a paper towel, rub it off, and it comes off pretty quickly and easily. And then only other recommendations, again, using the tape means that you're not going to have as much cleanup. If I didn't put the tape on, I'd have to Goo Gone all the way around the sides or peel it off. And again, you run that risk of peeling through to the logo or emblem. But if you have a more complicated logo than this, you can easily just put some tape through the inside. You can use scotch tape, masking tape, really anything except for duct tape would work pretty well, or electrical tape. And then you would just peel that off. Just be very careful as these logos meet pretty closely to the vehicle itself. The less room in between the logo and the paint, the more room you have for mistakes when you're peeling the Plasti Dip off. I had a benefit here because there's a pretty substantially sized ridge between the outside of the emblem to the paint, which made it a lot easier to peel it off. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, post them in the comment box below. I'd be more than happy to help out in any way I can. And again, as always, feel free to like and subscribe and come back for more content.